I don't do Piers Morgan debates really much anymore. And the reason for that is quite simple, is they kind of have all molded into each other. I feel like at a certain point, it's just a yelling contest and it gets so ridiculous and so silly, and there's so little moderation sometimes applied that it's just difficult to watch. And it's not that, you know, I wouldn't like to see some of these personalities go at it. It's just I would like them to, number one, maybe go at it at more substantive issues, and that when one person talks, you don't just allow another person to go in and just completely run roughshod and not allow them to finish their points, because they understand that them finishing their points might be a problem for them, which has been something I've noticed on a few occasions. I also don't know how much I'm a fan of really any debate host participating that much. I think I've honestly, and I mean this is no insult to like Wick or people who do this, but I've come to the conclusion that I think it's best for a moderator to quite literally just serve the moderation role, and that means like chiming in very rarely. And the only environments where you might be able to chime in is environments where it's very, very few people. And I mean, like, you're hosting a debate between two people and you chime in every once in a while. But when you've got 4 people on a panel and you're trying to chime in yourself, it doesn't really, you just want to be part of the roundtable. Get a different host at that point. At that point, you should have somebody else host and you just be part of the roundtable every week and have them, the other guests, be there with you. And you can call it like the Piers Morgan roundtable because Piers Morgan's on every roundtable, instead of him both having the power to moderate and the power to make his point. Which, look, I understand that as the host of the show, it makes sense that he wants to be able to make it go along, but I think that it's not the best way to host a panel. It is the best way, certainly, to cause a firestorm, though, and that is very beneficial to him. So I'm going to not watch this full thing because it's painful to watch the full thing at times. So I'm instead going to get in right when Tim Miller comes in. And the reason why is Tim Miller, he is, I believe, the managing editor at the Bulwark, or he at least works at the Bulwark. He is a former Jeb Bush campaign staffer. He helped manage the Jeb Bush campaign. But most importantly, during the recent Trump era, he has been a very, very big Trump critic, based on the fact that he doesn't believe Trump really has like Republican values, as in not like just the values of the Republican Party or like his version of the Republican Party, but also Republicanism, as in belief in the Republic, following of constitutional law. He doesn't believe that he stands for these principles, and therefore, until the party moves past MAGAism, he just cannot be a part of it. There are people who are within the Republican Party who have seen this whole mess and have decided it's just not for them. They just can't. It's even gotten to the point where Tim Miller, the person who used to run Jeb Bush's campaign, is out there criticizing Chuck Schumer for not being willing to pull the trigger on stopping the Republican CR, calling Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democrat leader, too weak on the Republicans. That's how much dynamics have shifted in the last decade, man. We really, truly live in a transformative political era. Anyway, I wanted to watch him because he has been really just going no holds barred lately. And I wanted to see how him and Dave Rubin would clash, since Dave Rubin has, well, I mean, he's still Dave Rubin. So, I mean, it would be, he's still as he is. And if you, whether it's the crazy predictions that never come to pass, the bad political analysis, or just the whining, I haven't really appreciated it. His words ever really coming into my headphones, but I always had this one little tinge of sympathy because I know how much hard it must be to be part of a political movement where there's a significant amount of people who think that him raising his child is a mistake. So there is just something in the back of my soul like screaming for him. Either way, though, I wanted to see how these people go at it. Also, on the right there's Brandon Stracka, or I think it's Strika. He's part of the Walk Away movement. I went to, like, I think one of their rallies once in DC. It's basically the left has gotten too crazy. Democrats are out of the scene. Come join the Republicans now. But the rally was crazy, and it did not convince me that they were like a value that stands with like true American value. I got convinced that they were really excited for the violence that the Proud Boys engaged in the night before, from what speakers were saying. I heard them praying away the demons in the opposition. That's not a walk away movement because the enemy is so crazy. That's, hey, walk away into our crazy movement. It wasn't like we're the moderates. It was, look at us, we're the sycophants too. And that's the problem with having sycophants, or for example, very, very die-hard people within your movement managing a walk away camp. You need people who are just on the margins, and they had none of those people. Anyway, let's watch as these people go at it over the signal leaks.
Right, so look, we've got Tim Miller's joined us now. Let me bring Tim in at this stage. Tim, I like your interview with Jeffrey Goldberg, but it just seems to me, and again, just to stress, if it was the other way around, I'd say exactly the same thing. I don't care which side is doing it, but anyone that tries to defend this or downplay the severity of it or play whataboutery or anything else, I think it needs to stop. This needs to be accepted for what it was, a tremendous error which could have had tremendously serious consequences. And if it was a senior military person who'd done it, they'd already be gone.
For sure. Look, to that senior military example.
What are we saying? If it was a senior, if this was a rank and file soldier, they'd be in cuffs right now. I just want to throw that out there. If a rank and file soldier added a journalist to a group chat with the times of strikes of enemies of the United States, or our planes, so the enemy would know when our planes with our pilots in them that could die, we're all blood bags. And when a blood bag and a giant death machine in the air is still able to die, like this, that person would go to jail. But in this case, it's no big deal. They said it was war plans. It was attack plans. Gotcha, libs. That's been the reaction.
Texas has already fired several generals. He's fired several people throughout the Department of Defense. So is Elon Musk as part of the Doge process. Imagine, we're doing the hypotheticals. What about Biden? I think the more apt hypothetical is, imagine if, a low-level general who was involved in this operation had texted the exact time and location of a military strike to an anti-Trump journalist. Now, and imagine if that general is one of these woke generals that they're going after. Maybe it's a black general or a woman. Imagine what Pete Hegseth would be saying today. Imagine what Dave Rubin would be saying today. We know what these guys would be saying. These woke generals, they're the deep state. We need a court martial. We need an investigation. This person needs to be fired. I think we can all agree that is what would be happening today. That person, if they were a two-star black general or female general and they had done this, they would be fired today. I think that's very obvious. And so, look, Pete Hegseth might be a mate of yours, might be a good person. I don't know. I've never met Pete Hegseth.
I mean, he said we are 100% on OPSEC. What does that even mean? In the text group, he said we're 100% on OPSEC. They say, don't worry, guys. We're OPSEC, meaning operational security, meaning that this calls private, these messages are private, nobody knows anything, we're 100%. He was talking like 100% on OPSEC. What is that? What is 100% on OPSEC? That's not, you're either secure or you're not secure. Okay? You're either 100, it's like he's like powering up or something. We're at 95% OPSEC, charging 96, 97, hold him off. I need to get to 100%.
Seth, but to me, you read this signal chain, and this looks like it got its way in over his head. And this is not, if General Mattis here, it's impossible to imagine General Mattis texting emojis and all caps pathetic to like a signal group chain, preparing them for when the strikes would be. It's just, it signals to me somebody that's not serious, it's not up for the job. The fact that then on the chain, he says, we have 100% operational security here, and there's someone on the chain he doesn't know. Like you didn't check to make sure you knew everybody on the chain. I think it shows just an unbelievable lack of seriousness. And I think clearly if this was one of the woke generals that Pete Hegseth doesn't like, they would be fired today, and there would be a DOJ investigation targeting them.
All right, Dave Rubin, a lot to unpack there, but I mean, a lot I agree with, I have to say. Look, let's talk about the signal aspect. If they, as you say, and I've seen that report, if they were encouraged to use Signal, and in fact, it had been put on a lot, apparently, of their phones and...
The State Department that day, I believe it was the Pentagon, put out a press release about the dangers of using Signal and security failures of Signal, like around the same exact time that they're doing this. You can use Signal but I wouldn't use Signal for like maybe like a communication that you want to get lunch later, or like some like broad details, but specific like times for strikes, no. Especially if you're in a foreign country, whether it's Russia, whether it's India, whether it's anywhere. Or Saudi Arabia, as I think has been kind of overlooked. Point is, like, it's Signal is better than other messaging apps, but its security failures have been reported, and the Pentagon knows about it.
And so on, when they came into their positions. So they're allowed to use Signal, which is deemed to be one of the more secure ways of communicating. And you believe, as Pete Hegseth clearly did, that you've only got on there the Secretary of State, you know, the Defense Secretary, the National Security Advisor, and so on. In other words, all the senior members of the cabinet that would be involved, plus one or two hand-picked staffers who are at a very high level. If you assume that's who you're talking to privately, then I'm not too fazed about emojis and stuff like that. You've got to have some presumption, I think, when you're conversing with people at that level, that you presume to be that level, that it will remain private. So I'm not sure I can get too exercised about that part of it. The thing that still exercises me, though, is just that if it hadn't been Jeffrey Goldberg, but had been somebody who wanted to really damage the administration, they really could have done, and you could have seen American planes blown out the sky.
Sure. Look, there's a couple of things going on here. First off, I think your guest in the center, I'm sorry, I don't remember the congressman's name. I think he said it was illegal to use Signal in these chats. Now, again, Ratcliffe, who is the CIA director, is saying, as you just said again, that it was preloaded on their computers and devices. So I don't think that's illegal, but if there's some legal portion of this.
Well, just for the record,
you are not allowed to share classified material over Signal.
Well, just to introduce you again, Jake, for Dave, it's Jake Auchincloss, who's a Democrat congressman from Massachusetts. So, Jake, you want to respond to him?
Okay, so, well, there's some issue as it pertains to whether
you
Signal
cannot share classified material over Signal.
Okay, so that's interesting. So, all right, so, Congressman, just to be clear, it is illegal to share classified information over Signal. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the military has its own entire network. They have skiffs inside.
Not only do we have our own network, do you know how our network, we've spent billions upon billions upon billions of dollars to build these secure telecommunication networks so our ambassadors can ring the White House and tell us what's going on around the world, and we don't have foreign spies snooping in on our messages. We spent all this money to do it, and we just decided to use Signal to transfer strike times. Why? Why? Is it? And honestly, you know what it feels like? It feels like laziness. It feels like that they got into the rhythm, as is widely reported, of them using Signal on the Trump campaign trail, that they had a bunch of threads in there, a bunch of group chats in there, and a lot of them knew how to do it. And so then when they won, they just got in the rhythm of using Signal. They decided to put it on John Ratcliffe's computer and use it for this when they shouldn't have. They got lazy, both when it comes to the use of Signal and checking who's in the group chat. So when a journalist was accidentally added by Donald Trump's national security advisor, Mike Waltz, he has reduced himself to acting like fairy dust and rainbows and magic unicorns or something came in and magically intercepted his phone, and this Atlantic journalist with his magic powers was able to manipulate him and his phone and somehow make him add him to the group chat. He talks like a children's explanation of why they got suspended from school. Well, you know, there was 12 guys and they all surrounded me and I didn't know what to do, and they all had bats and guns and knives and they were like ninjas, and so I just decided that I had to cuss and say all those mean words, and so I'm suspended. Like it's like a child's explanation as to why they did this thing, just as preposterous as possible to try to remove the blame from themselves. And that's what it is. He's acting like a child. And he, again, is the national security advisor to the president. These are the minds that's supposed to be advising Trump, who certainly needs advice.
Inside the homes of every senior military commander, they have skiffs co-located with the Secretary of Defense, precisely so that they are not putting highly classified operational plans on commercial messaging apps. It's illegal, full stop. And Pete Hegseth needs to own that accountability, because if this happened to a corporal or a captain or a general, their career would be over. He shouldn't have this job in the first place, and my goodness, he certainly shouldn't have it now.
Dave, I mean, if it turns out that that is correct, and I don't dispute what the congressman just said, then, should Pete Hegseth consider his position? It's a legitimate question, which Republicans
the only response I've gotten to this is it's either a whataboutism, like what about Hillary, right? And as far as I remember, they said that was disqualifying for her. So I mean, come on. But I mean, like all I've really heard is what about Hillary, or that the press has lied about it. That the press has lied about how bad it is in some way by saying it was a war plan instead of an attack plan, which is just them just being facetious. So I am genuinely curious as to what else they could find besides a whataboutism or, well, the press said.
I don't know. I can only hear the information that you're hearing on the fly the same exact way. If it turns out that they were told you are not allowed to put classified information in a Signal chat, and they went ahead and did it, even though it was preloaded on their computer, and Ratcliffe testified that he was briefed by people at the CIA about using that stuff, well, then there's a secondary problem. And also,
but they also got testimony from Tulsi Gabbard that there was no weapon systems named in those messages. And I know that F-18s were used, and the fact that I know that F-18s were used is not supposed to be, I shouldn't know that. Because if what she said was true, then I wouldn't have been able to read the messages and see F-18. I shouldn't be able to say if specific systems were not named, why can I name F-18? Why can I name these systems? We also got specific strike times, which would be classified, which she said would not be in the messages. So, I mean, John Ratcliffe's name is not Tulsi Gabbard, and he did deal with the hearing a little bit better. But I mean, again, that still isn't an explanation as to why either A, the journalist got added, which Michael Waltz doesn't have an answer to, or B, why they wouldn't just use a traditional secured line, which we spent all this money on, instead of the commercial option. Do they want to cut our lines? Do they not think is it just too not good enough?
So it should be reiterated. I don't think anyone here is defending the fact that Mike Waltz apparently let this guy into the chat. So there is some intellectual consistency here. And it's up to Trump. Trump has to decide what he wants to do right now. Does he think this is a big enough scandal and it's worth firing a guy that he just brought into NSA or not?
It's not up to Trump. See, this is the problem with the way Republicans. This is the problem with the way Republicans are acting these days, is they act like a board of advisors.
Democrats just had 4 years of a president with dementia and a completely unqualified cabinet and virtually everyone that had anything to do with it. So tell me more about the Republicans.
The Republicans act like a board of advisors to a CEO as opposed to a separate and co-equal branch of government. They have abdicated their responsibility. Mike Johnson acts like a courtier. John Thune acts like a courtier. They're the ones who confirmed this junior varsity squad of people who are getting out-competed by the Kremlin and out-negotiated, who are being laughed at by the Chinese Communist Party right now as they prepare to blockade Taiwan. This is threatening the safety of the American people. These people are not fit for the office that they hold, and all Republicans in Congress can do is shrug their shoulders. It's pathetic.
Did Joe Biden have dementia?
We really are. We're just in whataboutism. I said, again, it was either going to be whataboutism or it was going to be fake news, and we got option A.
And we had 4 years of him. Do you think Joe Biden was mentally competent to be president for 4 years? Do you think Joe Biden knew things that he was signing for 4 years?
What are we talking about?
Isms.
Why don't you bring up Hillary Clinton asking a question?
Do we want to talk about Barack Obama's tan suit as well? You would do anything to not have to talk about the fact that the Secretary of Defense just shared classified war plans.
To be fair, both sides.
Was Joe Biden mentally capable of being president?
Let's all accept Joe Biden was mentally unfit for office. Let's accept that. As we've been talking,
one of us isn't.
There is a report now that Pete Hegseth and other Trump administration officials are being sued by a government watchdog group for using Signal to discuss the military plans to strike Houthi targets in Yemen. American Oversight alleges in its lawsuit the chat on the unclassified commercial app that mistakenly included the Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, violated federal records law. So that does appear to be something that is now an active lawsuit. Tim Miller, just to bring you back in on this, what do you think should happen? I mean, in terms of accountability,
has Dave Rubin taught anyone anything? I don't think I've ever heard Dave Rubin say anything, and I've learned information. It's either the whataboutisms or the regurgitation of what other people said in a more poorly phrased way. I just haven't. I don't know, man. What does he contribute to these instead of just being a foil?
Moment, there's a sort of Trumpian playbook of them all doubling down, launching a lot of whataboutery attacks back, but nobody wanting to actually say it's a fair cop, gov, and I better stand on my sword.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that there should be an actual investigation into this. I don't really have any hope that the Pam Bondi or DOJ or Kash Patel FBI will take this seriously, but I think there should be. And I also think that, sure, Mike Waltz should be accountable for this. And Mike Waltz was on Fox last night. This is crazy, Piers. Mike Waltz was on Fox last night suggesting to Laura Ingraham that Jeffrey Goldberg might have gotten on this Signal chat deliberately. That's what he said. He said it might have been deliberate. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. That's our national security advisor. Like, that's a very serious accusation. He's saying that a magazine editor might have committed illegal espionage. And so, but he just doesn't want to actually take the accountability.
Well, then he changed,
but then, because to find out whether or not that was true, you need to have a real investigation by DOJ or by a special counsel, and they don't want that because he knows it's him. So he just wants to throw out those lies willy-nilly, and it's kind of an absurd lie, really. Actually, if some boomer magazine editor was able to sneak onto the chat illegally, that I think speaks even more to how incompetent the administration would be, other than the true story.
Yeah, I found it slightly more disconcerting that his second.
That's what I found funny. It was because all of their excuses, whether it is the most obvious, which is oops, added them into our embarrassing Signal chat, it shouldn't have, or it's, well, actually they hacked their way. Okay, so you guys were defeated by the Atlantic. All of the most powerful intelligence minds in the world supposedly were triumphed by him, that editor was getting in there, and all you had to do to defeat him was scroll up or down in the name section and find him. Like, that's embarrassing. Or the last one, which is a theory that Trump put out, which is that it was an intern, which is, how much power are you giving interns? If does the intern have access? Does the interns have access to the strike times? Are they the ones managing the Signal chats? How did they get added? How do you even blame an intern for this? Like, all of the possible explanations are bad. None of them turns around like, actually, it wasn't that embarrassing. It's just different levels of embarrassment for a variety of different reasons, all of them different shades of intelligence failure.
Explanation, because he had quite a few on the Laura Ingraham interview, was that somehow Jeffrey Goldberg's number had been under somebody else's name in his contacts list. And just to remind the viewers watching this guy is the National Security Advisor for the United States of America. The idea that he doesn't know whether everyone's name in his contacts list is attached to the right number and can therefore be communicating with God knows who without any actual knowledge that they are.
I didn't even think about that. If that story is right, that he did change the names, then is that something he's done for other names as well? And he thinks he's texting the president a message about our diplomacy with China, and oops, there goes a message to, oh, who is it? Who got it this time? Oh, the host of the PBD podcast. Oh, who gets an X? Oh my gosh, it's a Mr. Ian Miles Chong.
He thinks they are, is frankly terrifying. I mean, when you think about who his contacts may include, I mean, Brandon, can you find any explanation for this that makes any sense? This guy's the #1 security guy in the country.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think it's not a great situation. And I think that the messaging that's been put forward by him at this point has not made people feel terribly confident. But again, at the end of the day, I maintain the fact that it could have been a bad situation. I think at this point it should be investigated. I think that obviously.
It could have. What is that? The Atlantic. So we believe the Atlantic, or we think it's a real possibility that this guy hacked into the Signal chat. Okay, by the way, if that's possible, then that kind of throws a wrench into the idea that Signal was this whole secured platform where they could totally have these nationally important discussions about who we bomb, who we don't bomb, what times we're going to bomb them, what we're going to use to bomb them. If it's this easy that Not the KGB, not the FSB, not the Chinese service. No, not MI6. The Atlantic got in. Well, it doesn't seem very secure, does it?
Communications are going to be tightened up. They will learn from this experience. I don't think anything like this will ever happen again. Probably shouldn't have happened in the first place.
How do we know that it's not going to happen if we don't get rid of the person who let it happen? Look at it. Look at Tim Miller's face on the right. Look at him. It's like he just sniffed a bad fart. My God,
is occurred.
It does not look comfortable.
DensePixel got a tier 3 subscription.
Hey, DensePixel, thank you so much for the tier 3, buddy. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. And how can we say this isn't going to happen again? This isn't the first intelligence failure under Trump. Remember when he was showing invasion plans to journalists, classified invasion plans? We got the audio of it. We can hear Trump showing the invasion plans. One second. Trump shows invasion plans. I think it's better to hear it than to talk about it. Here we go. I found it. Took a second. But it's the Washington Post. Listen. I'm not going to pay. I unsubscribed from the Washington Post after they gutted themselves. Here it is. The Week. Does this work? Here we go.
Good evening. We begin tonight with breaking news. We have obtained what is expected to be a central piece of the government's case.
Listen to this.
Publicly.
These are bad, sick people.
That was your coup, against you.
It started right at the beginning.
Like when Millie's talking about, you were going to try to do a coup. No, they were trying to do that before you even were sworn in. That's right. Trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Millie, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look.
This just came up.
This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but
this is off the record. Guys,
this was him.
Don't worry. We got Signal and the most powerful security mechanism ever. Just telling the people listening that it's off the record. Oh, I guess they have to delete the audio then.
The Defense Department.
For somebody who doesn't trust the press, he's sure that's sure a lot of trust to give.
And him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. Pages.
So, by the way, the reason it would be done by the military is because if you say we want to invade Iran, Trump's not the one there with the crayons. Like, okay, we're going to attack from here, and then we're going to attack from here. No, it's the military. They prepare it. And so when he's like shuffling, look at all these invasion plans. Yeah, because either you asked for an invasion plan to be drawn up, or there was some reason that somebody asked for one to be drawn up, so the armed forces did it, so the president would have a list of options. It wasn't like Mark Milley was leading the charge to invade Iran. Either way, like, ridiculous nonsense. So when somebody says, it's probably not going to happen again, prove it. Because it keeps happening. Remember the classified documents on the bathroom floor when he tried to hide it from the National Archives? That's the reason his house in Mar-a-Lago was raided, because he was hiding classified documents from the National Archives.
I do agree that from what we know so far, it doesn't seem like any laws were broken by using Signal. I don't think that we have any evidence at this point that the information being discussed could be determined as classified. I don't think that's been definitively determined.
It has been definitively determined. I'm sorry. Okay. In what scenario would the time of D-Day or the time of a bombing run not be classified information? When is that something we openly advertise? When is Trump like, at 8 p.m. today, we're going to assassinate so-and-so? Did we not see how that would be a problem? If we said 2 hours before we were going to strike Soleimani, we announced that publicly. Why would that be information we wouldn't want to tell Soleimani? So he doesn't have time to go hide, run away, prepare himself, or prepare to shoot down American aircraft, endanger the lives of American servicemen.
Come on, Brandon, come on. Let's come back to planet Earth and reality, right? I literally cannot think of anything that could be deemed more highly classified than openly talking in a group of people on a platform where it is unlawful to talk about classified information, and I take the Congressman's word for that, and certainly this lawsuit seems to reinforce that is the case, or they wouldn't be launching it. But the idea that these specifics that they were talking about, times, weather conditions, type of aircraft being used, who they were attacking, and then giving a running commentary on how it was going with emojis, punching the air and American flags and so on. The idea that that doesn't constitute classified information makes me wonder what on earth you think would. This is
Right,
before they were doing this 2 hours before an attack. What could be more classified? I mean, I'm prepared to be educated. I just can't think of anything more highly classified than that information. Can you?
No, I can appreciate your position, and I can appreciate how passionately.
Well, what's your position?
I can appreciate my position is that I would like to wait for an investigation to determine.
The investigation, that's not gonna happen, dude. They're not gonna. What? Who do you trust to conduct this investigation and to be impartial? Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, some special counsel. Who?
Classified.
Come on. They're not going to drag out what has so far been the worst intelligence scandal of the next presidency, that the press and some of the public has grabbed onto just due to how silly it is. If it wasn't due to how silly it was that they got added, if it was just that they used Signal, we would have already forgotten about it. It would have just been a 24-hour, hell, not even 24 hour, it would have been a 12-hour Trump scandal. It would have been over in 12 hours. But because it was so silly and it was done in such a ridiculous manner, accidentally butt dialing in a journalist into a classified conversation about airstrikes. The airstrikes not being silly, of course, a real war, but just the method by which they found out. That's why it's still a scandal, because everyone can see you cannot national security jargon your way out of it. You cannot just like throw out a bunch of buzzwords and like talk about accountability and be done, because it's the type of failure where, like, if you see a plane land and there's a pilot next to you and they say, oh, that wasn't right, you probably don't know what was wrong because you're not a pilot. You look at that plane, you're like, what? It landed. I mean, it did. What else is it supposed to do? He's like, oh, well, the angle and the it's slightly dangerous. You wouldn't really know. But if you see the plane coming, you don't need to be an expert to say that's wrong. You don't need to be an expert to know that butt dialing in a journalist into a conversation about the times for strikes is both A, an intelligence failure, and B, that's clearly classified. If it's not, then I would ask for the president to post the times he's going to strike terrorists hours in advance on Truth Social to prove it, because we would all know the problem with that, and playing stupid for partisan political reasons makes you a hack.
That's classified.
There's not going to be an investigation.
I think that it's not.
How could somebody lead a walk away movement that is espousing itself to be, let's get away from the craziness, and then get to the point where you're just like, no, I cannot say that the times of airstrikes is classified. Oh, if we say that, that could cross with the narrative. Hold the narrative. Hold the narrative. Like, dude, you need to walk away. You need to walk away.
I think that it's not determined. If it were determined, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it right now, and there wouldn't be congressional hearings right now where this is being discussed and determined.
I don't even know.
Wait, so he's saying that it's a debate because there's people debating it. No. Donald Trump said, oh, maybe the election was stolen. Also, maybe it was. No, you're just saying something that we don't get to just choose our own truth because people are debating it. There's people who debate all sorts of things. That doesn't mean it's like, oh, it's a valid discussion. There's people who debate whether terrorism is justified. Some people think that. Oh, I guess both sides are equally as valid. No, have a spine, have a value, make your argument. If your argument's just based, well, some people agree with me. Oh, well, some people are stupid. Okay, some people are misinformed. Some people are wrong. Some people are right, but some people are wrong. So some people agreeing with you means nothing.
Yeah, I saw Tulsi Gabbard yesterday giving evidence the Senate, obviously.
She said it wasn't.
She repeatedly said it's not classified information. To which my question would be, well, Tulsi, what is?
But my point is that it is being debated, so you can feel strongly.
No, it's not being debated. It's not. No. This is fucking stupid. This is allowing those in charge of us to change the rules at their leisure for their own gain and benefit. I mean, this is a cop getting pulled over and and he's like, you were going 70 and a 55. Well, that's actually not speeding. What? Well, no, that's 15 miles. No, it's not. No, it's not speeding. So I didn't speed because it's not speeding. I'm an officer. Well, there seems to be a debate as to what speeding is. Let's have it now. 10 p.m. on Fox. Is speeding? No, that's not a debate. That's somebody saying that it's not speeding because it benefits them. Why wouldn't this be classified in this one instance? Because it would be embarrassed for classified information to leak. In no instance in the history of human beings existing and knowing what a bombing run is, knowing how to bomb other people, in no point in history is the time when an operation is going to start or when the bombs are going to fall. And let's be clear, they listed out the first wave, the second wave, what weapon, what machines were going to be used, F-18s. They listed out not only the time it was going to start, the time it was going to end, the different waves in between, the different aircrafts used. That's all classified. Every single bit of that information is classified. What situation is giving out that information like not hurtful? Either in letting the enemy in that operation hide and protect their assets, or letting them prepare to kill our pilots. We're just playing dumb because it's politically convenient, man. There's not a debate. It's that Tulsi wants to save her skin, and now you're sticking your neck out for a suit.
That it is, but the fact of the matter is it's not been determined to be.
How can talking about a war operation 2 hours before it's about to happen not be highly classified? Unless you think that should all be openly discussed.
Well,
Piers,
look,
you're
again,
never going to convince
I'm not
these
defending
two.
it.
You're never going to convince
there
these
is a
two to
difference between an
contravene
airstrike and a war plan.
No. He shouldn't say these two. He should focus on Brandon. Don't give Dave Rubin an opportunity to derail, because Brandon, he's dug himself his own hole.
Well, to be honest, I think I've got more chance of convincing. I've got more chance of convincing Dave than I seem to have with Brandon. I mean, Dave, let me just bring you back.
It's not going to happen because
hang on, I want to play. I want to play
the
the Tulsi
version of cancel culture.
Well,
they can't step outside the dear leader's box.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Can I talk about why?
This guy
Piers, can I talk about why this matters to the American public, though?
Yeah.
Because
what is the? He's in. Can I just say, like, this is all just. When they two go at it, when it's like, oh, Biden was old, none of this has to do with his constituents. The only thing that's being talked about right now that has to do with his constituents is national security issues around stuff being leaked, right? If you want to talk about probably what matters to his constituents, talk about Medicaid, talk about Medicare, talk about grocery prices. Do you think his constituents come up to him and ask, like, well, hey, you were too mean to Dave on the podcast. Too mean to Dave on the podcast, man. Honestly, my position has been for a while, we need less content creators running for office. Not all of them, but at least less of them. But now I'm reversing my decision because more of them need to be humbled. Okay? I think Cenk needs to run for office again. That's what I think.
This matters to the American public because America used to be known as a country that was no better friend and no worse enemy. And now we're picking fights with Canada and we're appeasing Russia. And the rest of the world doesn't know what kind of a friend we are, and they don't know how seriously to take us as an enemy. And when they see this kind of incompetence, when they see this kind of hypocrisy, when they see this kind of chaos and corruption coming out of the Trump administration, it makes Americans everywhere less safe because it makes our adversaries take us less seriously, and it makes our allies trust us less.
It was a successful operation. It was a successful operation.
In despite of the administration's failures.
In spite of the cock-up.
For once, we had a spiritual connection.
Let me bring Dave back in. Dave, I want to play.
At the same time,
hang on. I want to play a clip.
By the Russians.
Hang on. I want to play
over the Black Sea, which Mike Walls can't even point out to on a map.
Yeah, okay. Let me just play a clip of Tulsi Gabbard from.
Wait, was that Mike Walls, or is he talking about Steve Witkoff? Could be either, honestly.
Talking about whether she was even on the group.
Director Gabbard, did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not. Are you denying? Will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group.
Yesterday, before the TG thing came out, she was just basically like, oh, am I in there? And now we know she was in there. TG, who else could it be? It's obviously her. She just didn't give any straight answers the first day. And the first day, and the answer she did give about, like, we didn't have the systems that we used, we didn't have classified information, that was all lies. So it's probably smart that she gave dodgy answers when she did, because if she didn't, she might have just lied from start to finish and not just a few big ones that she got caught in.
Group chat.
And it just looks so bad when she refused to answer a question for like 5 minutes, and they asked John Ratcliffe the same question. He answers it like that. It's embarrassing.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
By the way, this is why I said Tulsi Gabbard's one of the worst. She has no intelligence experience. The only skill she has is is regurgitating propaganda talking points from foreign state government news agencies, and she hasn't shown any skill in like parsing through what is good information and bad information when her main role is presenting the presidential daily intelligence brief as the top intelligence official in the country. And now here she is in a crisis, just crumbling. Top intelligence official in the whole country. So, and we think that this is going to be the last intelligence failure? Okay, yeah, we'll see.
Because this is.
I hope it is. I hope they figure it out. Something. I don't know. They give like Tulsi Gabbard like a Fisher Price like laptop to manage like fake intelligence. They upload every. I don't know what they're gonna do, but they got to figure something out.
Under review by the National Security
Because
Council.
it's all classified. If it's not classified, share the text now.
I mean, Dave, I thought that was a very good question, a very good way of skewering Tulsi, because he's basically saying, look, the only reason you wouldn't be prepared to confirm that obviously true fact that you were on the chat, because we've seen the chats, would be if you deemed it classified material, which by definition now we believe would be an unlawful act if they were talking about classified information on Signal. So he kind of trapped her there, didn't he?
Sure. Again, there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, I think we're all in agreement that Walt screwed up by putting this guy in the chat. That's number one. There seems to be a little for everybody.
I think there's a screw up, and everybody just kind of be like, oh, a new person has entered. Let's just keep on talking. Like there's some people in there that should have enough knowledge to know that they probably should have just been on a secure line.
A little legal confusion around whether Signal can be used or not. The congressman saying it absolutely can't for classified information. Ratcliffe is saying not only was he told it could be, but it was preloaded on their computers. So why did the CIA put it on their computers? I think that's really worth thinking about.
I agree.
If it is illegal to use as a mode of communication.
Wait, if you ask for something to be put on your computer, like, okay, if I have Steam on my computer, that doesn't mean I'm going to use it to do like, okay, I'm going to use Steam to communicate what part of the front I'm going to people who would evacuate me. No, I would use a secure line to do that. That's why we spend the money on secure lines. I don't know if the CIA put it on his computer under the assumption he was going to use it to transmit attack plans. And that would have to be communicated by the CIA, because I do not believe the Central Intelligence Agency at any point would want its head to be using the infrastructure that they didn't build to communicate information that they retrieved.
Why is it put on their computers?
Well, to be fair, to be fair, Dave, to be fair, on that point, you can use Signal, but the point being it's illegal to put classified information on the Signal.
Yeah, this is not complicated.
They're not saying you can't use Signal.
That might be true. It would be a little odd that they would preload it onto the CIA director's computer then, but okay.
Not everything. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know if he thinks like the CIA computer, it's like you open it and it's like says CIA on it, and it's like you see the Matrix text coming down like supercomputer. It's a computer. And you have a bunch of things on it. Some of it would be classified, some of it not. Okay? You can have Minesweeper on there too. Is it CIA Minesweeper? No. No, it is not. I mean, it's one of the main apps that the Trump campaign used to talk on the campaign trail. The fact that he would get it for his computer isn't that crazy. It's just the idea of using it to transmit all this classified information when, I mean, it's not even like the worst app to transmit secret information, but highly classified operational combat info when you're the most powerful government on the planet. No, it's not secure for that.
Okay, we can put that there.
Which is a perfectly valid question. I agree.
Yeah, as for what Tulsi said there, she's saying there's an investigation, so she's just not going to comment on it right now. I mean, that's what virtually every official does with every hearing we've ever seen. So I'm not going to sit here and throw her under the bus for that.
Do you think, Dave, anyone should be fired
because other people can answer the same question, she can't. She's allowed. Okay, so Dave's answer is, are politicians dodge questions at committee hearings? She did the same thing. What of it? That's not good. That's the standard Dave is holding for a democracy. If you go to a committee hearing, you can just say nothing and that's fine. Nobody should criticize it because that's the standard anyway. So I'm not going to critique her. I'm not going to hold my side up to a higher standard. This bar is the bottom. And as long as we don't, like, as long as she doesn't, like, I don't know, throw a rock at one of the senators, then that's good enough for me. Let's hold ourselves to a higher standard. If there's a question they legitimately can't answer, then don't answer it. If there's a question they can answer, many of which she was asked and she didn't, then she should answer it. I don't think that's a hard standard.
Us for that.
Do you think, Dave, anyone should be fired?
I think look, Walz made a cataclysmic mistake, right? He's basically admitted it at this point. And just like I said 20 minutes ago, if Trump makes the estimation that
by the way, what do you say basically admitted it? He's still finding a way to try to pin it on the journalist. So he hasn't.
That stupidity, sheer stupidity, whether it was that he had the wrong name in there or he just, we all have multiple people with.
How can we say that somebody's been accountable and won't commit an error again if they won't take accountability for that error?
Like I said 20 minutes ago, if Trump makes the estimation that stupidity, sheer stupidity, whether it was that he had the wrong name in there or he just, we all have multiple people with the same initials or whatever it might be, whether it was just stupidity, ignorance, not understanding signal, whatever that might be. If Trump deems that fireable, then so be it. If I was the president right now and I had knew that this group existed, would I probably fire the guy who created this firestorm? The answer is yes, but Trump has to make that estimation.
It's a perfectly reasonable and honest assessment. Thank you. Let's just change tack. I think you'll enjoy this one a bit better, Dave. I'm going to start with you, Tim, on this. This is the Democratic Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett talking about the...
Oh, I heard about this. I'm sorry, okay? They did some whataboutism earlier. Remember Trump's, he did the hand movement about that disabled guy. Watch how much proper language towards disabled people now matters.
This is more my style. I appreciate it.
I thought you might enjoy this. Yeah, talking to about the Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who of course is wheelchair bound. Let's take a listen.
Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey.
Now, Tim, not only did she make a crack...
I don't think I would have gone for Governor Hot Wheels. That is pretty wild.
Repulsive jibe about the fact that Greg Abbott is a disabled man in a wheelchair, and that is clearly indisputable in my eyes. She then did...
Yeah, it is indisputable that he's a man in a... What? Yeah?
This.
I just don't know why that was born mentioning. Dylan is an American in my eyes. What do you mean in your eyes? Whatever.
She issued a statement saying, I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors.
Okay. No. That's some Trumpian, like, oh, what do you mean I meant? Yes, you did. You meant that dude has to roll around. Okay, that's what you meant by Governor Hot Wheels. You meant, haha, your legs don't work. I mean, like, you just say it. You don't need to put it that way, but you could say while he benefits from this disabled people across the country that need assistance, which is being cut, you can do whatever you want, but don't back off. And people like Jasmine Crockett because she sticks to her guns and she fires and she doesn't pull her punches. And if you start pulling your punches now, honestly, it looks worse than if you were to not pull your punch. If you were just to say, oh, it was a harmless joke. If you were just to fall, honestly, all she should have said, oh, it was a harmless joke. Don't think about it too much. It's not meant to go after disabled people. It's meant to make fun of da-da-da. And that wouldn't have been a perfect answer. I think some disabled people would still be upset, but it'd be better than, actually, I meant the trains and automobiles, when a lot of those people were moved by planes. And I mean, what, you're gonna say the contracting wheels and the plan? No, nobody took that from it. The only time I've ever seen the governor of Texas referred to as Hot Wheels is in reference to the fact that he is in a wheelchair. I've never seen it used in any other context.
Deliberately stoking tension and fear among the most vulnerable. Literally, the next line I said was that he was a hot a mess, referencing his terrible policies. At no point did I...
Well, he could both be Governor Hot Wheels in reference to his chair and a hot mess. He could do both at the same time.
Mention or allude to his condition. So I'm even more appalled that the very people who unequivocally support Trump, a man known for racially insensitive nicknames and mocking those with disabilities, are now outraged. Now, Tim, you're an intelligent human being. You're a fair-minded human being.
Am I?
She's talking utter bullshit, isn't she?
The statement was not necessary or great and obviously untrue. I think she should have just wrote it out with the joke. Everybody can make a judgment about whether they appreciate a joke at Greg Abbott's expense. I find it hard to imagine that my co-panelists from MAGA world are going to start clutching their pearls over somebody making a mean joke at somebody. And that's like the core to
no,
the
but we're
president.
not.
I do gotta say, I do like his pearls. They are cute.
The
People
United
who get
States'
outraged over
entire
jokes,
ethos.
it's you guys who get outraged
like the
over
United
jokes.
States
That's the difference.
Made it. Excuse me, Dave?
Tim, the difference is that we are not the people who get outraged over every joke and every word and every sort of innuendo. It's you guys.
I don't know. I mean, Trump went after SNL pretty hard. He's sued Bill Maher over a joke before. I mean, he wants to he wanted to make get rid of Flambery, even though it's unconstitutional. I don't know about that.
During World War II, do you drop the nukes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki or go with Operation Downfall?
That's kind of a curveball to throw at me right now, isn't it? I mean, maybe I would have just changed the targets. I don't know. I still don't know if I'd have to go and check all the information he had. Maybe change the target a bit. I don't know. Yeah, we'll ask me again tomorrow when we're not in the middle of Tim Miller's it looks like Tim Miller's O-face, honestly.
I'm glad. What's so good?
So I'm not outraged at the joke. I'm outraged at the fact that a human rights campaign fundraiser where it's about all the marginalized people and the perceived oppression of the trans people and everything else, that there she's making a joke about disabled people and they're laughing about it. I'm not outraged at the joke. I make far worse jokes than that on my show every single day.
I mean, let me bring in...
So we're slicing it kind of thin there. So we're going to pretend to be outraged about her joke when the president of the United States core brand is making these sort of jokes. So I wouldn't, if I was her, I wouldn't have put out the statement afterwards. If it's me, I don't know. I think that Dave's kind of business model over there, I don't take money from any Russian assets. Like, that's just me. So I'm able to just kind of say what I really think on here with Dave. You never know. So I understand why he might not, he might want to pick his spots.
All right, well, let me bring in...
That's some great work you're doing at Bulwark, a real solid place of journalism over there.
They've broken a few decent stories, actually. I mean, they're like a newer publication, and I don't know if they've broken any gigantic stories, but they've broken some stories. I mean, what media organization is Dave Rubin a part of? What does Dave Rubin do? Honestly, does anybody know the last project Dave Rubin worked on? Can anyone name it? Not even the last one he worked on. The last one you can remember.
We haven't taken any money from the Russians at the Bulwark, Piers. I don't know if you know this, but Dave took $400,000 per month from a Russian information operation, and so you'd understand why.
And what was the name of the show that I did for the Russians? Tell me that.
Right now is just handing things over to the Russians.
What kind of defense is? I'm sorry, it's just like a pathetic defense. $400,000 a month, but what show did I make for them? You don't understand it, Dave. They gave you money because you just being you is all they need. You existing as Dave Rubin is to them enough of a foil for a media environment. That you, by just existing in the space, are advancing their interests. That's what they ascertained. And they wanted to help you exist in the space and give you a bigger platform to do what you do. So what did you do for the Russians, Dave? Be yourself. That's what you did.
to pretend to be outraged about things. You know, just you don't know who's paying the bills.
What was the name of the show I did for the Russians, champ?
It was Tenet Media that paid you. Tenet Media
What was the name of the show?
Right?
What was the name of the show?
400,000 per month and 100.
This is something that he 100% like sat in his office and he like thought, what do I say when people confront me about this in the future? What show did I did? The accusation was never that you did a show for the Russians. It's that the Russians paid you a tremendous amount of money so they could take their so not only so they could help you do what you do, but also so they could take your content, repost it on their platform, which also helps you by bringing new eyes to you on a fresh platform, but also helps them because they're using your name to gain credibility, which is exactly what the agents that set up this operation discussed, using Dave Rubin and Tim Pool and Benny Johnson's name to gain credibility. Now, would that gain credibility with me? No, but it would gain credibility with the section of the American public that they wanted to gain credibility with. The same portion of the American public that Putin wanted to gain credibility with when he was making his speech to invade Ukraine and name-dropped J.K. Rowling being bullied by trans people. Why is he saying that? That doesn't matter in reference to Ukraine. He's saying it because he's trying to heighten political divides and gain the favor of one side towards Russia's interests.
$100,000 signing bonus, that not you?
Yeah, you just literally don't know what you're talking about, which is standard. You work for MSNBC and the Bulwark. It's impressive.
All right,
okay, so that
let's
wasn't
try
you then. You weren't commentator one in that indictment there, Dave? That wasn't you?
This is the thing with Dave. I understand you need a response because you can't just go from show to show like, yeah, I took the money. I mean, maybe someone with dignity be like, yeah, I didn't know. I was foolish. I shouldn't have done that. That's not what Dave does. But and also, like, this is being brought up as a jab, so I understand he wants some response. But you got to understand that there's a risk here that all you do is you end up dragging out the interaction and hurting yourself more, which is what I think Dave is doing now, because now he's like, oh, God, he's got to talk about commentator one. He's reading the files now. I don't know if that's smart. You took the money, man.
Yeah, I was commentator one. It was nice to read something honest about me that I did all my due diligence trying to figure out what was going on over there. What?
They did. Wait. They did not. The report did not say that commentator one did all of his due diligence, because if he did do all of his due diligence, then he would have known that the Hungarian businessman that they told you was giving you all this money, which, by the way, just taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from shady Hungarian businessman should already be a question about, wait, where exactly do your interests lie? Is it making money or informing the people? But putting that aside, he didn't exist. You couldn't Google him and find anything. So no, you didn't do your due diligence, because if you Google something and it doesn't look real, like, we live in the information age, Dave. You should not just take things at face value, especially shady businessmen who just drop hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the sky just so they can repackage your content.
What was the name of the show? Tell me about the propaganda I put out there.
What was the name
Tenet
of the show?
Media
that was paying you. Tenet Media was a Russian.
What was the name of the show?
It was an RT cutout.
Yeah.
It was a Russian
literally
cutout.
Don't know what you're talking about.
An
You
RT
don't
cutout.
know
They were
what
paying
you're
you. I've
talking
never
about,
been
Jam.
paid by a Russian cutout, so I don't exactly know how it all works.
You're paid by MSNBC, which is state-owned propaganda. You're paid by the Bulwark, which is which should be just called bullshit. That would be a better name of the network. Or whatever the hell it is you people are doing over there.
Could I jump in on
What was the name of the show that I did? What was the name? You don't know.
I've
you don't know because you don't know what you're saying. Very impressive.
Let me wrestle things back. Time out. Let's wrestle things back to the actual.
I'd rather talk about Jasmine Crockett's eyelashes.
Let's talk about Jasmine Crockett. I want to bring in Jake here. I mean, Jake, presumably you would condemn both the joke and the statement that was obviously a pack of lies.
Yeah, Piers, I agree with Tim that the outrage Olympics is a little tiresome and rings hollow. I also am an elected official, and I know that what is communicated is not what is said, it's what is heard. And what was heard from her statement did strike me as reflecting the governor's disability. And I don't think that's funny. And that's rule number 1A as a politician is if you're going to make fun of somebody, make fun of yourself. That's what's actually going to get laughs. So I don't think it was an acceptable statement. And I don't think it's acceptable when Trump mocks people with disabilities. I don't want to see Democratic politicians do it either.
And so her statement was therefore, by definition, from what you said, a pack of lies, right? In which she played the race card, the Trump card, the disabled card. There wasn't a card she didn't try to play in an effort to deny what we'd all heard with our own ears.
Yeah.
Here's what we should do as a country. We got to stop.
Yeah, it's like, duh. That's why he's not saying yes, because if he says yes, that sounds pretty bad to say that Jasmine Crockett played the race card, but I mean, she kind of did. She played all these cards thinking she could wiggle out of me. Dude, just double down. Double down. You know what? She should have been like, I don't know what you're talking about, Governor Hot Wheels, and then she starts like mocking, like being in a wheelchair. Like, ooh, you know, that she either do that or never address it again. Either double down and show you have the spine that much of her base likes her for, or never talk about it again, or just say like, yeah, it was a joke in the moment. It was just meant to be funny. No harm done, you know? Something along those lines. You can't just pretend that now somehow you're the victim and I don't like Greg Abbott either, but don't try to make that joke into some grand political statement of his treatment of migrant people. It had nothing to do with it, okay? Either, if you want to talk about migrants and their mistreatment, talk about migrants and their mistreatment. Don't try to make your jab into something it isn't.
Talking to people based on immutable characteristics and start talking to people as Americans, as individuals with inherent worth and dignity. Focus on what unites us. Focus more on the unum than the pluribus, in e pluribus unum.
Jake,
and stop
Jake,
with
you wouldn't
both
even have
the
a
hard
party
left and the hard right
if the Democrats
baiting
didn't
each
divide
other.
people by race, gender, and sexual orientation. You wouldn't even have a party. Your party wouldn't have a platform. So what are you talking about? And I'd love to sound off, honestly, on this issue of Jasmine Crockett, because this is representative of a really pivotal moment in my life. This is why I left the Democratic Party 7-8 years ago, because I believe the left-wing narrative that Donald Trump had mocked a disabled reporter, which actually turned out to be yet another Democrat Party liberal media lie. We're still talking eight.
He did. He did mock him. What do you mean? He did mock him. What? Like, it's been so long, nobody cares anymore. I don't even know why you'd go back and be like, oh, how dare they? He did. I don't remember. Like, come on. He did mock him. There's a video of it.
Years later about Donald Trump mocking a disabled reporter, but people want to excuse Jasmine Crockett actually making fun of disabled people when Donald Trump actually wasn't making fun of disabled people. But then, of course,
you're right, Brandon. Donald Trump doesn't make fun of anybody. You're right, man. You nailed it.
Well, let's play the clip.
The liberal
All right, let me play the clip.
No,
hang on. I'm going to play the clip.
Please name an example.
Wait, Brandon, let's play the clip. Let viewers remind themselves of what Trump did, talking about a reporter who does indeed have a disability. Let's watch.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
Now, Brandon, Trump
listen how much energy he had back then. My gosh. Well, sounds like a different man.
Vehemently deny he was mocking the reporter's disability. He has a disability with one of his arms, but he certainly looked like he was, right? And I do remember the Democrats getting very outraged about it. But, you know, to the Congressman's point, should we all try and elevate all ships here in the way that we talk about people on a personal level?
Well, hang on, because first of all, you did what the left-wing media does, which is take that moment out of context and assign a false meaning to it. What we haven't talked about is that Donald Trump has done that
just exact like January 6th, right, Brandon?
That exact same
January
voice and
6th
that
was
exact
just
same
it was an episode.
All right,
you were just at the
I know
Capitol.
this is a weird deviation. I have no clue why we're doing this.
We'll talk about a 4.5-year-old
It was a false narrative out of January 6th. That's why you have a criminal conviction.
Actually, I don't. I'm
just a false narrative
for my
on
nonviolent misdemeanor charge for standing outside of the Capitol shooting video. Yes, I've been pardoned for my Class B misdemeanor.
Well, so you did have criminal charges. It's just because you were pardoned didn't mean you did have criminal charges. You did.
Charge. But calm down. I'm going to finish my point. Donald Trump has done that exact same voice and that exact same gesture numerous times throughout the years when he was imitating anybody who was flailing because they were caught in a lie. He was making fun of the fact that that reporter who happened to be disabled was flailing because he was caught in a lie. What the left-wing media did was freeze frame a moment from that, put it side by side with that reporter, and say that he was making fun of his disability, which in itself is actually disgusting what the media did. But Donald Trump was not making fun of a disabled reporter. What Jasmine Crockett did was actually make fun of a disabled person and then double down and turn herself into the victim and play the racial identity card instead of apologizing for what she did. And I'd like to know, where's the Democrat Party outrage about this?
I'm sorry, it's so simple. Some people will use things like disabilities or words, as we're seeing right now in the right, retard has made like a huge resurgence because Elon loves it now. Like, and these become okay when it's your political opponents because all of a sudden the disability is funny now, and that, like, oh, their addiction, alcoholism is funny now. Like, all these things are funny. But when it's your guys, it's outrageous and you cannot, and it's nothing new. It's nothing new. I don't know why we're trying to like rewrite this and make it like Donald Trump has never, he didn't go after the disabled reporter, didn't go after the vulnerable. It's the mean old Democrat. I mean, come on.
Still talking about Donald Trump.
Well,
8 years ago.
to be fair, when it comes to intellectual honesty, both of the left-wing members of the panel have both said it was wrong, and they both said they don't believe her statement. I'm not sure what more you could expect. I was pleasantly surprised to hear that.
Well, Tim didn't really say it was wrong, and Jake said that it was sort of wrong, but that we need to stop playing identity politics in this country.
Well, Tim said
which
her
is literally
statement
the
was a
platform
load of
of this
nonsense, which
entire
I totally
party.
agree with.
It's not the platform of the entire party. I mean, the thing is, there's identity politics in the Democratic Party. But when you boil down the Democratic Party to identity politics, it makes me question whether he was ever really a Democrat. And that's not to say he wasn't a registered Democrat, but all you have to do to register to be a Democrat is go to the MVA, right? Did he participate in like party conferences? Was he part of some central committee? Did he do any of this stuff? Because the Democratic Party is essentially a gigantic tent of different coalitions that have overlapped into one coalition, basically standing shoulder to shoulder under the idea that as a collective, they can beat the larger interest groups that generally make up the Republican Party, i.e. the religious voter, etc. It's a big tent party is the idea, right? You've got LGBT activists, you've got people who are fighting on, for example, black issues. You've also got workers. You've got a bunch of different factions that make it so that those different factions issues matter, and they stack up to become part of the platform. But to assume that's the entirety of the platform is to just boil down workers' issues, if you talk about the unions, to identity politics. Is to talk about healthcare issues and the price capping of insulin as identity politics. Is to talk about a public option as identity politics. It's to boil everything down to stupid identity politics. It's like you just point to your opponent, say woke, and then that's the end of the discussion. Yeah, identity politics plays a role in the Democratic Party, because identity plays not only a role in the United States, but it's played a role in politics for quite a while. Identity matters quite a lot in the Republican Party too. It's just different types of identity. Their identity politics has a lot more to do with religion and faith and God and this religious community than, say, a racialized community or some other minority group. Either way, though, it's reduction. It's extremely reductive. If you were to look at Harris's platform, there was some identity politics thing in there. For example, when she delivered her message about marijuana decriminalization, she opened it specifically targeting black voters because she was performing poorly there when it came to like the polling. But she could have just done that for the general population. That is something which she should have done for the general population first, and then talk about how it's going to specifically help these communities at a disproportionate level. Where I do think that there was a certain amount of identity brain nonsense that got away. Like, I need to get this vote from this group, so we just need to go and talk about these issues instead of a way that could overlap, be more inclusive. Crazy enough, the message wasn't inclusive enough. It's weird to think about, but like, people could say that, Dylan, don't you think that a message directed just to black voters is a good idea? Sure, but that message from her failed anyway. So I would rather try for every voter while trying for those voters. And I think they'd probably take it as more genuine than just being viewed as, well, honestly, it could be seen as pandering. Either way, like, these are, like, identity is part of politics, but it's just, you know, it's just reductive. Who would have thought that the guy part of the walkaway movement would have a reductive classification of his opposition political party?
Literally his party's platform.
All right, I think we can all agree she was obviously.
I said her statement was nonsense, and I just want to say, maybe me and Elon Musk agree on something. Let's legalize humor. We're really gonna get 5 middle-aged white guys on here just like tisking people over a little joke. I mean, like honestly, like Jasmine shouldn't have lied about her statement. I appreciate that Congressman Auchincloss says he wouldn't make a statement like that, but this is silly. Isn't the whole point of your guys' platforms that we shouldn't have cancel culture? We shouldn't get so outraged about everything. Like
nobody's calling for
nobody's
Nobody's yelling. We're responding to a question on a TV show.
It's so fake.
Well, the trouble, Tim, is that when I haven't checked in the immediacy of what you've just said, I haven't got the capacity to do that. But if we went back to when Trump was seen supposedly mocking that reporter, and he denied it, like I said, what did you say at the time? Did you take a view that...
I didn't like that. I didn't like that at the time. It's been 10 long years, Piers. It's been 10 long years of Donald Trump calling everybody names.
So would you like to apologise for being...
We've had a change.
So would you like to apologise?
There's been a change.
All right, but Tim, would you like to be apologised then for overreacting to that? Do you want to lead the way here?
I don't want to apologize. I think that we've had a change in what is acceptable discourse in this country in a way that I probably don't like. I wish we could go back to 2015 where we didn't do this, but we had an entire ecosystem that you guys just...
Honestly, I don't think we should normalize going after disabilities of politicians. I also think that, you know, this is something that will be much easier for the right to do than the... I wouldn't do it. If you want to ask like morale, I'm not going to like flip out and outrage over it because he is right that this is where politics is, but I don't think I should contribute to it. And I think we could probably make the case better without going after it. And I also know that if I was to start talking that way, I do know that there are people who are going to hear that message. And while I think I'm going after Greg Abbott, some people could think I'm going after them when I say Hot Wheels. Like, I'm like, isn't that something to laugh at? He's disabled. Well, is that something to laugh at when it comes to them? And I'm like, you can make mean and like offensive jokes, period. But like, I don't know, when you're an elected leader, you either double down on the fact it's mean, but it's not directed towards all disabled people, it's just towards him, whatever. Or don't mention it at all. Don't do whatever Jasmine did.
Profit off of.
When you say you guys, what do you mean?
What
What do you mean you guys? Hang on. What do you mean you guys?
Tim, you're literally the only person on the panel who's engaged in
Hang on, Brandon, hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Tim, the only difference, Tim, between you and me is that I'm pretty much in the centre. You're to the left.
I'm in the centre.
Dave's to the right. Right? I don't know what you mean by you guys. We're not all on the same page here.
I said, like, back in 2015, my point is that in 2015, we Donald Trump, I think we can all agree, changed what was appropriate discourse in this country, and he really crafted it and coarsened it. I think a lot of people are upset about it. And what
you're the only person on this panel
is that anybody that was upset about it, there was a whole media ecosystem that grew, that defended him and defended it, and said that anybody that anybody gets outraged about this is a snowflake, and that we should be allowed to make jokes at all this country. And so the coarsening of our politics
Trump taught people to start punching back against people like you, against places like the Bulwark and NBC.
Things have changed. Donald Trump changed.
Trump convinced people to start punching back. Really? That's what happened? And who exactly did he decide to punch at? Those Gold Star families where is the woman even allowed to speak? Those are the people that deserved punching at the time. That's what he was convincing everybody, stand up for yourself. Trump was a self-empowerment mechanism.
Things you guys wanted it to change. I mean, you guys, in this case, Brandon and Dave. And here we are.
Dave, do you want to respond?
But you're the only person who's engaged in personal attacks
we can speak more freely and honestly about things. We have a less censored internet now than we did 10 years ago. Donald Trump uncovered all of this deep state nonsense. He uncovered the collusion with mainstream media and big tech and the government to silence people. These are all good things. I got one for you, Tim. For example, very fine people, hoax or not hoax. You work at the Bulwark. They're very great people of journalism. Very fine people. Hoax or not hoax.
wrote a very extensive story on the very fine people thing.
Hoax or not hoax, yes.
And I think if
hoax or not hoax, one word.
No, it's not. It's obviously not a hoax. If you want me to explain why, people can go read Robert Jasinski's story. He was there. He's in Charlottesville. He's a conservative. He explains why it's not a hoax.
It's not a hoax.
That if you want, or I could explain it. Whatever you want, Dave.
Delusional.
Yeah, you can explain it. Donald Trump, for 10 years, Joe Biden literally ran his initial campaign for presidency saying Donald Trump said very fine people on both sides. What was the line that Donald Trump said next, Tim?
Right after very fine people on both sides?
Yeah, what did he say after that?
I don't remember what the exact sentence was right after.
I'm not talking about the white supremacists or the neo-Nazis who should be condemned completely. But you work for the Bulwark.
Wait, okay. Here's the question then. Who were the good guys in Charlottesville on the other side? That's why this is the thing. I think he wanted to like cover all of his bases while semi-condemning it, but by semi-condemning it and trying to cover all of his bases, it ended up being a wishy-washy statement when what people wanted from the time from the President of the United States is Nazis suck, fuck the Nazis, bash them, you know? Just something tough, something strong, you know? Didn't need to be go hunt them down, but, you know, something that would be like a clear message. And when he says there was nice people on both sides, well, who was the nice people on the other side then?
So you were in the job of laundering the mainstream media lies, and now we are in a position to fight against those lies. So you hate independent people who are allowed to actually tell the truth because they use their own minds instead of being NPCs like you.
That's what Tim Miller said word for word. Exactly. I missed it. It's good Dave caught it for me.
Who are just regurgitating basically state-sponsored nonsense.
Dude, you were taking Russian money. You're not using your own mind.
What was the name of the show, Tim? Do you know what you're talking about? What was the name of the show?
Let me bring in.
Come on, Tim. You might have Googled it.
I will apologize if you've given the money back. Have you given it back? Did you give it back?
Oh, you are a clown. You are.
That is actually a great question, Dave. Can you just answer that? Yes or no?
A clown. You literally don't know what you're talking about. What was the show that I did? What did I say that was Russian propaganda? You have literally no idea what you're saying.
Did you give the Russian blood money back?
I've never been indicted for taking Russian money. I've never been in an indictment for taking Russian money.
Let me bring in Jake.
Was I indicted, champ?
Can we?
In an indictment.
The Russian talking points. The Russian talking points being parroted on this show are less concerning to me.
It's just endless.
Then the Russian talking points. The Russian talking points being used by Steve Witkoff, who is actually.
Not in this debate, but you know.
Time out for a second. Stop with the lecture for somebody who has defended the January 6th insurrection against the United States government. I do not want to hear you talk about false narratives or talk about drivel when the two conservative panelists on this show launched attacks against a free and fair election, one of whom has a criminal conviction for it, and trying to make themselves through performance art look like they're some kind of martyrs.
The same thing.
You two attacked the tenets of this democracy. You have no platform. Yeah. You have been an apologist for the MAGA right-wing false narrative around January 6th. I was in the building that day. They were trying to hang the president, the vice president of the United States. They were trying to attack members of Congress, all in order to steal the voters' voice and vote of the 2020 election. So you two do not have credibility talking about Charlottesville, talking about left-wing media narratives. Please spare me. What I'm focused on right now is Russia and the fact that this administration is
you're not very good at
appeasing. What you're focused on right now, you just talked about a 4.5-year-old riot for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Parroting Russian talking points as they are negotiating for Ukraine's sovereignty and independence, and it puts Americans at risk.
All right, Dave, last word, given he whacked you there.
Yeah, look, Piers, as I always come on your show, I tell the truth. I tell people what I think. They can agree or disagree. And well, I'd love to find out if Tim knows if there's very fine people on both sides. Again, not of this debate.
I would encourage you both to continue that fascinating debate after we finish. Got to leave it there, chaps. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. I have a tumor now. I now have a tumor. Congratulations, everyone. Fun channel update. Tumor. Dave is unbelievably obnoxious. That's no update.